All right, I haven't told you guys any good stories for a while. Some of the feedback I've gotten in months past is you like when I talk about Old Testament stuff, because I guess for some reason I do it like you never heard before. So I'm going to tell you guys two stories tonight. I'm going to tell you guys a personal story, and I'm going to tell you guys a biblical story. The biblical story we've heard time and time again. It's one of the most famous stories in the Bible, but we are going to relate it to our lives today. So first for the personal story. A few years ago, and literally a few years ago, it wasn't a long time ago, a few years ago, I was in the middle of dating somebody, and she had a brother, and her brother didn't like it. And her brother would talk about the relationship and about me any chance he got. He'd talk about me behind my back. He would voice his opinion to the family. He would he would say a lot of things, and make no mistake about it. He was in the right. He's an older brother. I'm an older brother. I got a younger sister. There was a somewhat of an age difference in this relationship that he didn't appreciate. So I completely understand why he was doing what he was doing. I probably would have done the same thing if my sister would have been doing this too. So I get it. I get it. Long story short, weeks went on, all this stuff would get back to me. He said this, he said that, he was talking about beating your butt, blah, 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 blah. And stupid guys, right? Stupid men, what do? We get that ego going. Right? Two things I can't, listen to me, two of the dumbest things I hear out of adult mouths. One, I can't wait to get drunk. What are you, 17? It sounds so stupid coming out of an adult mouth. And the other thing is this guy, I'm going to kick his butt. He want to mess with me? I'll show him what's up. I'm going to take him out. Blah, 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 blah. What are you, in 8th grade? It sounds like we should be fighting in an alley somewhere behind the high school. I tried to stop fighting when I was in 8th grade, literally. I don't know why, but that stuff just sounds stupid. But lo and behold, I find myself one night headed to a local bar. And this girl's family was having a Christmas party there. And it was a bar that they frequented a lot. The brother, this was his hangout. This was his place. This was his home. This is where he did his thing. This is where he hung out with his friends. This was it. It was his place. It was in a city that I was only somewhat familiar with. It was in a small town where they don't know you. You're already an outsider. It was a bar that if you're not a regular there and you walk in, everybody turns their heads. We've all been in them before. We understand that. So even if this family wasn't there and I would have walked in here, I'd have had to been on my guard. But I remember getting out of the parking lot, and I want to say it was probably already 9:30, 10 o'clock, maybe even a little later. So there had been, people had gotten it in by this point. There had already been some pretty good drinking going on. And I remember getting out of my car and taking a deep breath and thinking to myself, you are an absolute idiot, but you have to do this, right? Because something inside of us, something provokes us that we just cannot let people talk about us without doing something about it. It just wasn't sitting well with me. So I knew that in order for the relationship to move forward, I needed to go there that night. And to be perfectly honest with you, it was almost like I was thrown at it, because I was scheduled to go to work that night. And through the course of events, something happened. I needed to be there for this girl. Next thing I know, I'm sitting in this bar's parking lot. And I remember that night, I walked in there, and it was everything you could imagine. I walk in, the music doesn't stop, but it feels like the music stops. Everybody stops doing what they're doing. Everybody turns their heads. Oh, here he is. It's like they were talking about me already. That's him over there. So I walk into this bar, I order my beer, I go up by the jukebox, idiot me, I wore an extra tight shirt that night. So I'm sitting there, doing this thing, just leaning up against the jukebox, mind my own business, and of course, here we go. Blah, 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 yeah, I know who you are, yeah. And I, like an idiot, Christian, you want to go outside and talk? I said that. Everybody in the bar didn't hear it except his family. His family are the only people that heard us. So now they're over here. What a jerk, what an idiot, blah, blah, blah. It could have got ugly. All right? It could have got ugly. But by the grace of God, cooler heads prevailed. And I give this kid all the credit in the world because he could have walked outside with me and popped me in the face. I give him all the credit in the world. We kind of just left it at that. It's too loud in there. You do your thing. I'm going to do my thing tonight. We'll talk later. Boom. Thank goodness. But I'll never forget being in the parking lot that night, thinking to myself, I'm about to walk into the lion's den. I'm about to walk into the lion's den. Now, all of us in this room have been in that kind of situation at one point in our life. I know a lot of people in here are divorced. They've been divorced, they're going through divorce, something of that nature, right? And it doesn't matter. Soon, either you have to go back to the ex to drop the kids off, to pick the kids up, and either she's dating somebody or you're with the person and you're the one going back in. Some sort of situation there always leads us, when we start dating again, well, we got to go back. We got to go back again. It feels like we're walking into a lion's den. Especially that first time. And especially that first time that we find out like our ex has a significant other, or we're bringing our new significant other with us. Now we're putting that person in a bad position, and who knows what that poor person's thinking as they go with us. But I don't care how tough you want to say you are, or how tough you want to act, something inside of us makes us think, man, we're going into it now. We're walking into it now. But we do it, right? We do it. I don't know if it's a fault, if it makes us faulty, or if that makes us honorable people. We do it. We walk into situations that we feel like are walking into a lion's den. People at work. If you've ever been in trouble, if you've ever had to go in front of any type of disciplinary committee, meeting, anything like that, sometimes it feels like you're walking into a lion's den. Whether you're right or wrong, I know where I work. It's literally you walk into this room, there's anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 people sitting around a table, somebody's on conference call from central office. Don't ask me how I know that. But anyway, the person on the conference call from central office, they're acting like they're some kind of cop, blah, 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 ask you all these interrogating questions, so on and so forth. You can feel like you're sitting in the lion's den. Be good at work. That's what that tells you. Another thing, and this one makes me sad, but how many of us have ever walked into a church for the first time and felt like we were walking in to a lion's den? Now, there's 2 wrongs there, okay? 2 wrongs. One is if you're walking into that church and that's how you're feeling, that church is wrong. That church is wrong all day long. But the other thing is it might be telling you something about yourself. That might be God saying, well, hey, wait a minute, you shouldn't be feeling this way, maybe it's time to get your life right. So just think about that. It's a shame it happens, but I've talked to a lot of people that have said, man, I walked into a church a couple weeks ago and it literally felt like I was walking into a lion's den. Well, there was a man in the Bible, who we all have heard before, who actually experienced a lion's den. And he didn't walk into it. He was literally thrown into it. And that's Daniel. And if you see on your papers tonight, we are low on scripture, but high on content. So I'm going to read you guys the story once again, and then we're going to break it down. And if you want to follow along, I'm reading from the NIV. It's in Daniel chapter 6, and I'm going to read the entire, it's 23 verses, so it's not even long. So here we go. Chapter 6, it starts out, it pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom. A satrap is a prince or a governor or something like that, with 3 administrators over top of them. One of them was Daniel. the satraps were made accountable to them so that the king might not suffer loss. Now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. At this, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption in him. He was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Finally, these men said, "We will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God." So the administrators and the satraps went as a group to the king and said, "O Darius, live forever. The royal administrators, prefects, satraps, advisors, and governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or man during the next 30 days shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, O king, issue the decree and put it in writing so that it cannot be altered." So King Darius put the decree in writing. Now when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. Then these men went as a group and found Daniel praying, asking God for help. They went to the king and spoke to him about his royal decree. Drop down a little bit to 15. Then the men went as a group back to the king and said, "Remember that according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, no decree or edict that the king issues can be changed." So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him to the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, "May your God whom you serve continually rescue you." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation may not be changed. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without entertainment being brought to him. He could not sleep. At first, the light of dawn, the king got up, hurried to the lion's den, and when he came near the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve continually been able to rescue you?" Daniel answered, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight. Nor have I ever done any wrong before you, O king." The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. When Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted God. That's a story. That's a story. And just like the Bible, just like you would expect from the Bible, 23 short verses and about 100 different sermons. 23 short verses. And I find it funny for you numerologists that love to do different numbers for the Bible. 23 verses in the story of Daniel about him going to die. Psalm 23. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Interesting. That stuff interests me. So that's a heck of a story. We're going to focus on 2 aspects over the next 2 weeks about that story. We're going to talk tonight about how he got there. And we're going to talk next week about how he survived. How did he get through this harrowing experience? But to get to how he got there, the first couple things we need to know. Number 1, lion's den. We've seen 100 pictures of this, right? We've seen all these illustrations growing up. They found actual dens in Morocco years ago that they can relate back to this time period. Okay? These were actual lions' dens used to torture people, used to kill people. And they were in a ground. There was a pit, just like the Bible describes, where there would have been a stone placed over top of that pit, and then some sort of seal would have been around it. Back in those days, if the king sealed something, just like the Bible says, that was it. It was over. There was nothing they could do about it. Now, these Moroccan dens that they found actually had 2, they looked down at them, they had 2 chambers. One side would have been for the lions, and the other side would have been where they put the person down in it. And then there was a stone wall with a stone door in between these 2 chambers. So they could throw the raw meat or whatever the heck they wanted to in the one side. They would lift up the stone, and these lions would come in and do what they got to do. So that's the first thing. There were actual lions' dens found. So I want you guys to visualize that a little bit as we talk about this. Another thing is a lot of these pictures they show Daniel he's a young looking guy. 30s, 40s, 50s maybe. He's in his early 80s. Daniel is in his early 80s when this story starts. So we're talking about a senior citizen, an elderly man, being thrown into a den of lions. That's significant for next week. I just want you to keep about that. Keep that in mind. But we're going to focus a little bit on the beginning. How does this guy get there? Here's a man of the Lord, right? Here's somebody that if you read the beginning of Daniel, he was captured. Okay? He was captured. He was basically told, you're not Hebrew anymore. We're going to turn you into this. He was taught a new language. He was given a different name. He had his entire life, kind of like Joseph, taken from him. The difference between him and Joseph is, Joseph was poor from the gate. Daniel came from a very rich and affluent family. That's why the king who took over this city, the conquering king, only wanted people of high prominence to be his little go-tos. All right, he wanted to take these little boys and turn them into like his servants, and then they were going to grow up and become people on his board, judges, princes, whatever. That's how Daniel got his start. And from the time of that change, Daniel said, I'm not giving up my Lord. I'm not giving up the Lord. I'm not giving up what I learned. I'm not giving up what I was raised with. He never gave it up. You hear the story about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Daniel was around for that. They all four of them said, we're not eating meat. We're not eating meat. The king wanted to train these kids up, right? He wanted to give them all this meat, all this stuff, all this wine. Daniel said, no, I'm going to eat vegetables. That's why you guys ever heard of the Daniel diet? That's where you can find it. So Daniel's 80. He's lived a good life already. He's lived a good life. And the Bible tells us that the king Darius, okay, this is after Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar's dead. Nebuchadnezzar was the guy that threw all those people in the furnace. He's gone. Darius is in charge now. He appoints 120 satraps. So 120 princes. So there's 120 dudes that are ruling over like 120 provinces. And then there's 3 people who they have to answer to. 3 of them. Daniel's one of them. So Daniel has 2 people that are his equal. Them 3 answer to the king. And then those 3 have 120 guys underneath him. We'll call Daniel the vice president. So there's 3 vice presidents, vice kings. They're in charge of making sure the 120 do everything that the king wants. If the king wants something done in one of the provinces, Daniel and his 2 buddies are in charge of making sure those 120 do it. So think about it. It's kind of set up like work, right? You got a boss. Maybe you have an owner of a company. Then you have a boss. Then that boss oversees a couple people. Then there might be a foreman if you guys work at a big company. If you don't, God bless you. If you only have to answer to one person, God bless you. But it's kind of set up like where we work. And that's important to know as we move forward. So here's Daniel, right? He's minding his own business. He's doing what he's asked of. And he's doing it well. He's doing it so well that the king decides he's going to plan to make him head of everything. So he's going to be second in command now. All those 120 plus 2 are going to answer to Daniel. That's how well this guy's doing his job. Now, again, we got people at work like that. If we're at work, or heck, you can even use school. You can use high school or college. There's always somebody who gets better grades, who does more work, who brings the better science project to school, or there's somebody at work who goes above and beyond. They're always the first one to volunteer to do something. Yes, I'll stay over. Yes, I'll do this. We all have them. And what happens? What do we usually do? We start getting mad at those people, right? We start looking up our noses at them. We start talking about them behind our back. about their backs. That's all these satraps were doing. That's all these princes were doing. So think about 120 people, and since Daniel's 80, remember, these princes are going to be significantly younger than him. We're going to talk about boys that are probably anywhere from 16 to 25 to maybe 30. So they got a future ahead of them. They want to get somewhere. They want to get into the king's favor. They want to move up the ranks. And here's this 80-year-old dude that they're probably wondering, the heck's this guy? Why don't you just die? You know, where I work, it's always, when are you going to retire? So I can move up. That's how we think it. That's how they think it where we work. That's probably what they're thinking. They're thinking to themselves, look, we got to do something about this guy. He is in our way. And now the king wants to make him the head of all of us? Forget that crap. So, what do? They get together, and you ever notice something? You ever notice how bad workers always find bad workers? Like, if you want to know the truth about misery loves company, just go to work. Just go get a job. Misery truly does love bad company. If somebody at work is lazy, they're going to go around and they're going to find other lazy people. If somebody at work can't stand management, they're going to go around and find somebody at work to talk about management with. And if you even think about saying, you know what, that guy ain't that bad. Yeah, you're an idiot. Now you're public enemy number one. For those of you kids that are in the room, get ready. That's the real world. It happens. So Daniel is doing everything he's supposed to do. He's in the king's favor. The king's going to raise him up. These people all get together. Now, 120 people. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of dudes getting around doing this. So, the first thing they do, and heck, I call it, they use the classic formula. The first thing they do is Daniel 6, verse 4. At this, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel and his conduct of government affairs. But they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. The first thing people like to do when they got a problem with somebody is drudge up their past. I'm going to find something bad about them. I'm going to figure they did something wrong. I'm going to use their past against them. Shoot, you guys watch political ads on TV. That's all they are. Blah, 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 blah. Look what this guy did. Look what that guy did. Well, he did this in his past. He did that in his past. They do it. 1,000 years ago, 1,200 years ago, these fools are doing the same thing. So everyone that cries about our political times, they were doing it back then too. These dudes get together. They say, look, we got to find something on this cat, man. We got to figure out what he's done wrong. Find out if he's ever slept with any chick. Find out what he's doing. You know, they're thinking all kinds of stuff. Can't find anything. Can't find anything. So what happens then? What happens next? What's the formula for burning somebody? If you can't find anything about their past, what do? Make it up. Bingo. You make it up. Excellent. They lie. So here's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with jealousy, envy, deceit, and malice. We've all experienced all four of them, right? Jealousy, envy, malice, and deceit. Deceit. That's probably some foreign word somewhere. I probably just swore it like Pakistan. So Daniel, in a way, is in the lion's den already, right? He's living the lion's den. He's got 122 dudes that are envious of him, want to take him out. And here's something else about bad workers I never understood. You got somebody there who's doing all your work for you. Why don't you just lay down and let them do it? But we spend so much time and energy, right, complaining and coveting. Kind of sounds like you're Penguin fans right now. Complaining and coveting. We spend more energy doing that. Why don't you just do what the person himself did? Just put all that energy into making your own way. Just make your own way. It's that simple. I don't understand, but that's just how we are. So, finally, they say, you know what we're going to do? His faith. His faith. He is unwavering in his faith. They knew that every day, and remember, this is Old Testament, every day Daniel would walk to his house, and he would go up in his room, and he would pray 3 times a day. Morning, afternoon, and night. And this is when Jerusalem, remember, it was conquered. So the city lay in ruins. His windows, he had windows in his house. They were constantly opened. They were the windows that could overlook the city of Jerusalem, the ruins, God's city. He kept these windows open all the time. That's where he would go and kneel and pray. They knew this. So what do? They all get together and they get in front of the king. And look what they do. They go and they deceive the king. Verse 7. The royal administrators, prefects, satraps, advisors, and governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or man during the next 30 days shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, funny thing about that verse, I always wonder, where was Daniel? Where was Daniel? Could you imagine? If I was the king, some sort of red flag would have gone up, right? Here's all these dudes, except Daniel. Daniel's the only one that isn't there. But they tell the king, we've all agreed. So I don't know if Daniel was out on the mission. I don't know if the king had Daniel doing something else. Maybe Daniel was praying. Maybe they decided to go when Daniel was praying. Whatever it is, they lie. They tell the boss, look, we've all agreed that this is what you should do. All of us. Because they knew they knew already that they were going to get him. So they talked the king into signing this rule that for 30 days, the only thing you can pray to is an idol. Is something else. Anything other than praying to the king, which was Darius at the time, you go in the lion's den. Again, remember, if they weren't born during the time of the fiery furnace, they at least probably heard it from their parents. They knew that Daniel was not going to waver, because he didn't waver as a kid. He sure as heck ain't going to waver when he's in his 80s. They were so sure of his faith. That's what I want you guys to understand. Think about that man's walk. They knew him so well that he was living out his faith. He was living out his walk. There was no doubt in their mind that he was going to do this 3 times a day. They knew it. One time during that day, they had 3 chances to get him. Man, they used his faith against him. They knew that they could trap him. Again, classic formula. You got, look to the past, can't find anything in the past, and they lie. So, here we go. Get the king to sign this thing. They move. They get out. Boom, boom, boom. Go about their ways. They all meet one day. Now Daniel, knowing full well that this decree is signed, he knows that this rule is in effect. He knows that for 30 days, he can't pray to anybody but Darius, according to this rule. What does Daniel do? You want to talk about some stones, okay? You want to talk about living out your faith. Walks right up the steps, right to his open windows. He could have prayed. He had every right to go into the basement of his house or hide behind a wall or go into a closet. God would have heard his prayers. No way. You're not messing up my walk with the Lord. Knowing full well what the consequences were, knowing full well that the punishment was death, and come on, by this point, he had to have known, right? He had to have known that 122 people don't go around talking about you behind your back without it getting back to you somehow. You know darn well that something's going on. Especially when the decree comes out that you can't pray to your God. How many of them 120 people were praying to the Lord? Probably not anyone. Probably not anyone. Daniel knew. Daniel knew. And he walks up those steps anyway. He gets on his knees. Windows are open. Boom. Those numbnuts are sitting down there, hanging out around the campfire or whatever. Got him. Got them. All 120 of them. Go back to the king. King, yo, you great king. Guess what we seen? Tell the king what they saw. Now, at this point, the king is mad. Because Daniel's his right-hand man. He's his man. He knows that he can trust Daniel with his affairs. He knows that Daniel is upright. He knows that Daniel will carry out whatever he asks him to carry out. And he also knows that Daniel is extremely faithful to the Lord. So the king don't hear it right away. He takes a day or two to figure out how he can get Daniel out of it. That's pretty impressive. We're talking about a king who had his own idols, had his own pagan religion. That's how important Daniel was. The king tried to get him out of it. These doofuses, again, come back. All 120 of them. King, you signed the paperwork. You signed it. It's got to go down. He's done. The king knows. He knows at this point. He's got to do it. Brings Daniel around. Says, hey, you're done, man. Sorry. But I hope your God saves you. That's a heck of a statement from a pagan. Heck of a statement. Throws him in the den. We all know the rest of the story. My goodness. The beginning of that story, though. We walk into that mess all the time. That's what I'm talking to you guys about your walk with the Lord. Okay? Every single day, we have to deal with this as Christians. Listen to what Matthew 5:11, this is Jesus. Matthew 5:11, Jesus tells us, blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Jesus tells us that, Matthew 5:11. Insult you, and I guarantee you they were insulting Daniel. Persecute you, absolutely, they were persecuting for his faith. Falsely say all kinds of evil about you. These dudes lived that. Those 122 guys lived that verse. Heck, Daniel lived it. Listen guys, people are going to do this to us. They're going to talk about you behind your back. They're going to laugh at you. They're going to make fun of you. They're going to ridicule you. I'm telling you guys, listen to me. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Because Jesus tells us you're blessed. When people do that because of who you are, because of your walk, you're blessed. Jesus sees that. It's okay. Every day we wake up. Every day we walk into work. Every day we walk into a school. Every day we get out of our house and go into the world. It's like we're walking into our own lion's den. It's like we're walking into our own den of lions. And this stuff is going to happen to us. But it's okay. But, it hurts. I don't like it. It's not fair. If I'm a Christian and I follow God, why should that happen to me? You know what that is? That's a perfect time to ask yourself a question. Who am I living for? What am I living for? Somebody said something to me last week, and I thank them for it. They said, listen, I wake up some days I don't know, from day to day. I don't know. And I get it. I get it. We all have our roller coasters, right? We all have days where we're just like, man, I don't know. I don't know. That's a perfect time to ask yourself that. Are you living for the world, or are you living for God? Because if somebody starts ridiculing you and making fun of you and ripping on you about your walk, about your faith, about your newfound love of God, or whatever it is, old love, whatever you got, wherever you guys are at, wherever you're at, let it roll off you. Just let it roll off you. That'll tell you right there. Because if it bothers you, and you take it home with you, and you let it fester, and you get upset, and you go to bed with it, and then you wake up, you know what that starts? That starts your mind doing exactly what these 120 guys do. That's when all the envy starts. That's when the mischief starts, and the malice, okay? Because then you start saying to yourself, I'm going to get them. I'm going to get them. They ain't going to talk about me like that. They ain't going to make fun of me like that. You're wrong. You're living for the world. You're living for the world because you're letting it get to you. You're letting it get to you. When you've got your head on right, when you got your mind right, when you got your walk right, that stuff, yeah, it's going to sting at first. But within minutes, within a half an hour, you're going to laugh. You're going to laugh. 3 things. You're going to laugh it off. You're going to go about your business. And the third one, oh boy, you're going to pray for them. You're going to pray for them. That's when you know. That's when you know where your walk is. Going about your business. Ephesians 6:7 tells us, work with enthusiasm as though you were working for the Lord rather than people. Work for enthusiasm as though you were working for the Lord rather than people. I'm here to tell you guys something. That's hard. That's hard. Because we're geared in this world to work for the man. We're geared to work for whoever our boss is and to get our way in the company and to move up through the ranks. And it's tough because what do we run into? We run into people like these 120 that get in our way and they want theirs. And they're going to do anything they can to get it, including walking over you. And a lot of times, as Christians, people look at us and they say, oh, they're a Christian. They're weak. I can walk all over them. And they're wrong. They're wrong. Because back to Psalm 23. Though you walk through the valley of death, the Lord is with you. He's with you. Through all that garbage, through all that mouth running, He's with you. Daniel did it. We're going to find out next week about his time in the lion's den and how the heck he got out of it. He did it. All those dudes ran their mouth about him. All those dudes set up a conspiracy to take him out, to kill him. Walks right up the steps, gets on his knees, prays. We can learn a lot right there. We can learn a lot from Daniel right there. Unwavering. Doesn't matter what people said. Didn't matter what people did. Kept on about his business. The last one for the night, Matthew 10:22. Jesus tells us this. You will be hated by everyone because of me. But the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. And that's where we're going to stop, and we'll pick it up next week. Bow your heads. Father, thank you so much for everyone in this room tonight. Thank you for bringing us together again. Sometimes we don't understand why things happen to us. But you tell us you're with us no matter what. Even when we're getting laughed at, name called, ridiculed, you're still with us. Even though sometimes it feels like we're walking into our own lion's den, you are with us. Your rod and your staff comfort us. There are not words to express our thanks for that. I ask that you continue to be with us through the week. Be with everybody in this room. Safe travels as they go throughout their week, throughout their ride home tonight. Bring everyone back safe next week. I ask this in your name. Amen. Thanks, guys. Next week, we're going to get into the den.